Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotar Shri Srimad Abhayacharnaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Goswami Thakur Shri Prabhupada ki Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki Ganga Mai ki Jamuna Mai ki Bhakti Devi ki Tulasi Devi ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki taking over the world worship Prabhupada's transcendental book distribution ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Vishtai Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikas Swami Namne. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're continuing our seminar on the Chatushloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're hoping to go through this verse today. I don't know if it's going to be possible to cover this entire verse in one class. We'll probably have to move into the evening. But then the question comes, what are we going to do about the next verse? That I'll have to discuss with Chandanacharya Prabhu, because the next verse is the verse which has a 17-page purport. So we have to see what needs to be done. So anyway, let's pull it up. Yatha Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Ucha Avacheshu Anu Pravishanti Apravisthani Tatha Teshu Nam Teshu Aham Yatha Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Chavacheshanu Bhuteshu Chavacheshvanu प्रविष्ठानि अप्रविष्ठानि तथा तेषु न तेष्वहम् यथा महान्ति भूतानि भूतेषु च वशेष्वनु प्रविष्ठानि अप्रविष्ठानि तथा तेषु न तेष्वहम् यथा महान्ति भूतानि भूतेषु च वचेष्वनु प्रविष्ठानि अप्रविष्ठानि तथा तेषु न तेष्वहम् यथा महान्ति भूतानि भूतेषु च वचेष्वनु प्रविष्ठानि अप्रविष्ठानि तथा तेषु न तेष्वहम्. Please repeat. Mataji. Yata mahanti bhutani. Yatha, just as Mahanti, the universal, Bhutani, elements, Bhuteshu, Uchavacheshu, in the minute and gigantic, Anu, after, Pravisthani, entered, Apravisthani, not entered, Tata, so, Teshu, in them, Na, not, Teshu, in them, Aham, myself. O Brahma, translation Prabhupada by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Purport. The great elements of material creation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, all enter into the body of all manifested entities. The seas, the mountains, aquatics, plants, reptiles, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and everyone materially manifested, and at the same time, such elements are differently situated. In the developed stage of consciousness, the human being can study both physiological and physical science. But the basic principles of such sciences are nothing but material elements and nothing more. The body of a human being and the body of a mountain, as also the body of the demigods, including Brahma, are all of the same ingredients earth, water, etc. At the same time, the elements are beyond the body. The elements were created first, and therefore they entered into the bodily construction later. But in both circumstances, they entered the cosmos and also did not enter. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, by his different energies, namely the internal and external, is within everything in manifested cosmos, and at the same time he is outside of everything, situated in the kingdom of God as described before. This is very nicely explained in the Brahma Samhita as follows. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabi Sabirya Evan Chiruta Rupatya Kalabi Goloka Evan Vasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead, Govinda, who by expansion of his internal potency of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss, enjoys in his own and expanded form, simultaneously enters into the atom, every atom of material creation. Ekopyaso rachitam jagananda kotim yachaktirasti jagananda chayayadantaha andantarasa paramanu chayantarasam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship the personality of Godhead Govinda, who by one of his plenary portions enters into existence of every universe and every particle of the atoms, and thus unlimitedly manifests its infinite energy all over the material creation. So, I'll start right now. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utaf Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sandubhye Vacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminati Namine Brajajana Rasa Vedi Prachita Shri Jaya Shri Sahaparikara Gaurang Rankita Swanta Bhumihi Bhuvana Vidita Tirtha Stoma Kirtha Vitai Bhuvi Jaita Vikaso Bhakti Purvo Yatindraha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasya Shivakshise Yasyaste Hridaye Samvitam Nrisimham Aham Bhaje Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir Yata Deve Tata Guru Tasyate Katita Hyarta Prakashante Mahatmanaha Yata Mahanti Bhutani Bhuteshu Chashvacheshvanu Pravisthani Apavisthani Tata Teshu Nateshvaham. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. So this is an amazing verse where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, again, like I was saying before, that there's different ways of looking at the Chatushloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and right now, one of the ways we can see is we can understand Achintya Beda Beda Tattva is being explained also in this verse. That Krishna is simultaneously in these elements and he's simultaneously not in the elements. That's a very important thing to understand. Krishna makes a similar statement in the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows the verse? That's right. Bhagavad Gita 9.4. Pull it up. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina mastani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. Where Krishna says that, behold my mystic opulence, O Arjuna. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So if you look at the Sanskrit in this verse, you can see this, avyakta murtina. So this is a very amazing thing to actually notice. You can look at the word-for-word translation. And Prabhupada translates avyakta murtina by the unmanifested form. So by the unmanifested form, isn't that itself sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? How is a form unmanifested? How is a form unmanifested? Can you think of a form which is unmanifested? In the material world, is there an example of a form which is unmanifested? No, there isn't. Okay, there isn't. You can think about it. Is there a form like that? No, there's no form which is unmanifested. There's a form which is unmanifested. But we can see that Krishna is like that. Krishna is like that. That he is simultaneously present everywhere personally, and he's also present there in the form of his energies. We can see this in the Bhagavatam, Vadanti Tattvavidya Sattvam Yadjnana Advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti Shabhyate. That we can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead is realized in three forms, the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan features. And this is the non-dual absolute substance, and that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. So, we can understand from here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is simultaneously present and is simultaneously not present in things. And Prabhupada goes on to give the example of the different material elements. We read in the Bhagavad Gita 7.4, Bhumi Rapo Nalo Vayu Khammano Buddhirevacha Ahankaraiti Amme Bhinna Prakriti Rasada. And anyway, you can leave it. You don't need to go there. So we can see over there that there's all these different separated energies of Krishna. And they are simultaneously present within the body of every living entity, and they're simultaneously aloof from it. They're aloof, like in one sense that, yes, this body that we have is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, right? But it doesn't mean that we contain that things. Our body is made of these things, but we don't contain it. We can see the earth has an existence separate of our body. So does water, so does fire, so does air, so does ether. And mind, intelligence, and false ego also has an existence separate from us. And we read about it in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, where this entire description is giving, pradhana and all these different elements. All these different elements are there. So then the example also is given. It's like, if you want to go cook something in the kitchen, you could, the ultimate goal is to have the final dish to be prepared. But everything exists in its unmanifested form, right? So let's just say, okay, I only know how to make two things. So let's just say, you want to make quinoa khichdi, right? This is the easiest thing to make, actually. If you want to make quinoa khichdi, then, you need to have water, you need to have quinoa, you need to have fire, you need to have all these spices, you need to have the vegetables, and maybe if you want, you can add like whatever, like some sour cream or whatever you like, some tomatoes, whatever. So, when you go into the kitchen, the quinoa khichdi already exists in one sense, right? In one sense, the quinoa khichdi already exists. But in another sense, it doesn't exist. Simultaneously, it appears and it's there and it's not there. It's there in its unmanifested form. And then, when you go and you perform the activity of cooking it, then it is present in its manifested form. So we can understand it like that. Is that understandable? Then it's like pretty straightforward, actually, in one sense, right? That all the ingredients are over there, they're present in the unmanifested form. But when you cook it, and then it finally comes into the manifested form. So the quinoa khichdi was already there, but it wasn't manifest before us. So we understand it like that. We understand it from that point of view, where we see that Krishna is present. He's simultaneously present, and he's also not present at the same time. Like Krishna, you can look at the next verse. He says, Nachamastani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhuta brinnacha bhutaso mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Where Krishna says, look at my mystic opulence, Arjuna. Look at my mystic opulence. And yet, everything that is created does not rest in me. That's amazing. Behold my mystic opulence, although I am the maintainer of all living entities and although I am everywhere, I am not part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. That Krishna is saying simultaneously two things. What is he saying? He's saying that all created beings rest in me, but you see, and everything that is created does not rest in me. All living beings come from me. I'm the source of everything. The living entities cannot exist without Krishna. But at the same time, everything that is created does not rest in me. How is this possible? It seems like a contradiction. But this is the Achintya Shakti of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That Krishna is present everywhere as the Super Soul, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshya Janatishtiti, Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudani Maya. Krishna is directing the wanderings of all living entities. He's directing the wanderings of all living entities. And, he is controlling material nature, and he's doing all these things But at the same time, Krishna is not sitting in this spiritual world overloaded by the burden of having to deal with all this. Krishna doesn't get a headache thinking, oh my God, like, I need to like change the way this program is functioning because I'm having a problem. They don't, Krishna doesn't need to have all these various problems that we have in the material world. If the big corporation is going on, then, there may be so many people who may have to deal with so many headaches. But if the CEO is smart, Prabhupada said, a good manager is a manager who manages his way out of performing any service. Which means he's so expert at delegating that he doesn't have to do it himself. That's an expert manager. So Krishna also is an expert manager. He's so expert that while the whole material creation is going on, can you imagine like directing the wandering, even if like you have to drive someone from one place to another, and your service is to drive, and let's just say you had to drive for 14 hours or like 11 hours, like if you're like the only driver and like Mahotsaha Prabhu had to drive Jacob somewhere, or like we had to go to Dallas, me and Charandeep, and I had to drive, and it's like it takes some effort. It takes some effort, to just be the only driver driving all these cars around or whatever, driving one vehicle around. But imagine you were in charge of driving all the vehicles on that road. You were in charge of it. You had to make sure that they don't collide. You have to make sure that all this doesn't happen. And not just that, you have to take care of all the needs of all the people who are on this planet. To even take care of all the needs of all the people in one temple, that itself is like a big deal. What to speak of providing for the needs of every living entity, most of whom are not really even conceivable to us, are inconceivable. Like Krishna is even taking care simultaneously of the microbes too. And he's simultaneously taking care of Brahma too. How is this possible? It's inconceivable actually. How is Krishna doing this? But that is Krishna's mystic opulence. It's Krishna's mystic opulence. That we can say this in the Bhagavatam 1:2:31. Krishna says, pull that up. Taya vilashiteshveshu guneshu gunavaniva anta pravishta abhati vijnanena vijrimbita. Go back, there's another verse too before. Aso gunamai bhava, is that no? Sa evadam sasarjagre bhagavan atmamaya sadasad rupaya chaso gunamaya guno vibhuhu. And before that, Krishna says, okay, yeah, that's it, go back. Go back to the verse you were on. Okay, now read the translation over here. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. Although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be one of the created beings, he's always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Yet again, Krishna blows our mind, doesn't he? There's the same. We can understand how the Catuh Sloki gives rise to all this complex knowledge is present in the Vedas. Actually, you can see this over here. Read the purport. Go to the purport, please. The living entities are separated parts and parcels of the Lord, and the conditioned living entities who are unfit for the spiritual kingdom are strewn within the material world to enjoy matter to the fullest extent. As Paramatma and an eternal friend of the living entities, the Lord, by one of his plenary portions, accompanies the living entities to guide them in their material enjoyment and to become witness to all activities. While the living entities enjoy... What happened? While the living entities enjoy... Just don't be so much in the mode of passion. While the living entities enjoy the material conditions, the Lord maintains his transcendental position without being affected by material atmosphere. That's the thing. In the Vedic literature, Shruti, it is said that there are two birds sitting on a tree. Okay, keep going. Keep going. Okay, so the Lord Paramatma is always in full and transcendental knowledge. That is the difference between the super soul and the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, the living entity, is controlled by the laws of nature, while Paramatma, the super soul, is a controller of material energy. So that is the difference we understand over here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present simultaneously, and he's present simultaneously, and it may appear that he is one of the created living beings, but he is not affected by material nature. It's a perfect example of being in the world but not being off the world. Krishna is present in every atom of the universe. Ekopyaso rachitam jagadanda kotim yachaktirasi jagadanda chayayadantaha andantarasa paramanu chayantarasam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of its plenary portions, enters into the existence of every universe. And not only that, in every particle of the universe, in every atom of the universe, Krishna is present, and Krishna is also present between those atoms. And he's simultaneously not affected by material nature. Just see why. Because he is a master of material nature. Devi he shagunamai mama maya duratiya mam eva ye prapatyante maya metam terantite. That the Supreme Personality of Godhead says it is very difficult to overcome the divine energy of Krishna and Maya, but one who takes shelter of me can overcome her. We can also see this in this, you can go to the next verse, Saya vilashite shveshu guneshu gunavaniva anta pravisha abhati vijnanena vijimbrita. Sorry, no, you skipped a verse for sure. Go back. Yeah, there you go. I knew that. Okay. Translation. After creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva expands himself and enters into it. Although he is within the modes of material nature, he appears to be one of the created beings and is always fully enlightened. Did we just read this? And then go back? Or was Ashok gonna? Oh yeah, we didn't read this. Okay, go down. Okay. In the beginning of material creation, the absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, in its transcendental position, created the energies of cause and effect by its own internal energy. Purport. The position of the Lord is always transcendental because the causal and effectual energies required for the creation of the material world were also created by him. He is unaffected, therefore, by the qualities of material modes. His existence, form, activities, and paraphernalia all existed before the creation. Again, isn't this just like the first verse that we read of the Catuh Sloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam? That Krishna existed before material creation, Krishna exists during, and exists after. So same point. He is all spiritual and has nothing to do with the qualities of the material world, which are qualitatively distinct from the spiritual qualities of the Lord. This is the point. That although Krishna is the creator and maintainer and sustainer of all living entities and of the material world, he is simultaneously aloof from everything which goes on in the material world. And Krishna gives us an example of this. You can pull up Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text number 6. Yata kasha sato nityam vayu sarvatra go mahan tata sarvani bhutani mastani tipadharaya. He says, just like, understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. So it's inconceivable. It seems inconceivable. Then Krishna gives us an example. Think about Krishna gives the example of the sky being like an upside down bowl, and the wind is contained within the bowl. So, Krishna checks the movement, like Krishna limits the movement of the wind, or the sky limits the movement of the wind, but it does not interfere with the movement of the wind itself. Right? So you have this big of a space, and the wind cannot leave this space, let's just say. The wind is free to go this way, that way, make a tornado, do whatever it wants. The wind is free to do whatever, Vayu is free to do whatever he wants. But at the same time, he cannot go beyond this. You see? So similarly, Krishna is making a simple point that we have to understand over here. That just like the mighty wind, all created beings are rest in Krishna. So Krishna limits the conditioned souls within the material world. Okay, this is your playground. And you can't go beyond the playground, or more precisely, this is your prison. And you can't go beyond the prison. But while you're in the prison, with the limitations of what I've given you, you're free to act however you like. So this is the point, that how Krishna is simultaneously aloof and not aloof at the same time. How Krishna is present and also simultaneously not present at the same time. How all the living entities are within Krishna, and Krishna simultaneously controls them and doesn't control them at the same time. So this is a point that needs to be understood. And it's, of course, it's inconceivable to a big degree, to a huge degree. That's why Krishna says, in the previous verse, he says, was that Yogamaishwaram? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. He says Yogamaishwaram. And then he says, your mystic opulence, right? Behold my mystic opulence. So we should understand like this. And what's even more inconceivable, Atava bahunaitena kim gnatina tavarjuna vishtabhyaham idam krishnam ekam shena sito jagat. That Krishna, this is the last verse of the 10th chapter, I think it's 1041 or 1042, the last or penultimate verse of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, that's it, But what need is there, Arjuna, for all the detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Krishna is pervading and supporting the entire universe simply by a small fragment of himself. Simply by a small fragment of himself. That's amazing, actually. That by one small fragment of Krishna, he is performing all these activities in this material world. Yasyai kanishvashita kal matavalambhya jivanti loma vilaja jagadanda natha vishnur mahansiya yatsya kala vishesho govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. It's 542 of the Brahma Samhita. If I think I got my numbers right this time. Let's see. Oh, yes, yeah, Prabhu, sorry. Go back. Actually, no, go forward, we'll find it. Go forward, keep going forward. Keep going. Next, okay, yeah. There you go, that was it. Prabhu. Yeah, okay. Yeah, read the, go to the translation. Brahma and other laws of the mundane worlds appearing from the pores of the hair of Mahavishnu remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of a portion. That's amazing, actually. Okay, how can we understand this? Then Krishna goes on to say, go to the next verse. Bhashvan yatashma sakaleshu nijeshu tejas sviyam kriyat prakatatya pitad vedatra Vishnur, Brahma ya esha jagadanda vidhana karta govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. He says, I know the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in non-effulgent gems that bear the name Surya Kanta, etc. Can we think of another gem which holds the power of the sun, described in the Christian book? Precisely. So, we can see from a portion of Krishna, he gives a small portion of that energy that he has from his expansions. He gives a small portion of that energy to that most intelligent living entity in the universe, Brahma, who is completely aware of how the entire material world functions. How can we conceive of this? How can we understand this? That is Krishna. You see, he's simultaneously empowering the living entity, and at the same time, he's detached from personally maintaining it. Okay? That Krishna is a perfect example of being of delegating, but also being responsible at the same time. The Krishna delegates. An expert manager is very expert at delegating, but at the same time, he also is responsible. Some people think delegation means just give it to him and I don't care how the work is done. But no, an expert manager delegates, and he also makes sure that this person is on top of what he needs to do. And Krishna's management is very Brahmanical. He's not like some Shudra, he doesn't do some Shudra management where he's like, okay, what time are you coming in? Check out, check in, clock out. Okay, Brahma, what exactly is going on here? This, that, and the other thing. But no, he empowers the living entity, gives the living entity intelligence, gives the living entity everything that he needs. And at the same time, he knows, okay, this person is going to act accordingly. He knows how to act, he knows how to behave, he knows how to perform his service. And in case he's messing up, I will correct him. In case he's messing up. Krishna's management is very Brahmanical. And you can even see, same thing with Indra. Indra is staying in rain and all this and all. When Indra gets too puffed up, Krishna crushes his pride. And in the Christian book, Prabhupada writes, considering the first Krishna thought, you know what, Yadus, let's go. Not Yadus, but he says, you know what, let me go to the heavenly planets and destroy this Indra. He's too puffed up. But then he thinks, thinking of the insignificance of the position of Indra, Krishna didn't want to waste his time with him. Let me just lift up the hill, go with the hill. Why? Because it's very insignificant, and Krishna crushes Indra's pride. Again, when the Parijata flower, when Rukmini is given the Parijata flower by Krishna, Satyabhama exhibits transcendental envy. And then she says, Krishna, now I want the entire Parijata tree. You give Parijata flower to Rukmini, but I want the entire Parijata tree. And Krishna goes to the heavenly planets and he wants to take the Parijata tree. But then Indra, in spite of, right before what had happened was, Narakasura had stolen, Bhaumasura, same. He had stolen the earrings of Indra's mother, Aditi, and he had also captured all these princesses and all these things. So Krishna goes on Garuda with his wife Satyabhama, and then he fights with this demon. Not only the demon, but he fights with all of his followers and kills all of them, and then goes and collects these earrings from this demon and goes and gives it to Indra's mother. And Indra is very pleased and very satisfied. He's saying, "Oh, I'm so grateful," and all this and all that. But then right away, when they want the Parijanya tree, the Parijanya flower, he refuses to give, and Krishna wages war on Indra and destroys him, and takes the Parijata tree by force. So, Krishna, he knows how to manage. If things are getting too much out of control, he knows how to keep things in check. Krishna knows how to keep things in check. And he simultaneously delegates it and at the same time doesn't delegate it. And like we can see this, that what the Krishna says, Upadrashta Anumanta Cha. That Krishna is a supreme witness and he's also a supreme sanctioner. Right? There's this verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 13th chapter. Can you search for it? Upadrashta Anumanta Cha. There Krishna helps us understand, that Krishna is a supreme witness and a supreme sanctioner. That Krishna is witnessing every activity that we're doing. So every time we have a sinful thought, Krishna is witnessing it. Every time we have a sinful thought, Krishna is witnessing it. And when we pray to Krishna, Krishna, please take this away, Krishna is witnessing that also. Every time we have a sinful thought and we go and perform a sinful activity in secrecy, Krishna is witnessing that also. There are no secrets when it comes to Krishna. Krishna knows everything. Sarvagya. He knows everything. So when we think, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go and do this and no one's going to find out. I'm going to hoodwink everyone. And some criminals are very expert. They think, oh, I'm going to bend the laws and I can just definitely get away with this. But no one can escape the laws of nature. 13:23, you can see this. Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, text number 23. Could I have the Bhagavad Gita, please? Thank you so much. Upadrashta Anumanta Cha. Bharata Bhokta Maheshwaraha. Paramatmeti chap yukto dehesmin purushah paraha. Translation. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Yet in this body there is a transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter and who is known as the supersoul. It is stated that the supersoul, who is always with the individual soul, is a representation of the Supreme Lord. He is not like an ordinary living entity. Because the monist philosophers take the knower of the body to be one, they think that there is no difference between the supersoul and the individual soul. To clarify this, the Lord says that He is present, He is represented as Paramatma in every body. He is different from the individual soul. He is para, transcendental. The individual soul enjoys the activities of a particular field, but the supersoul is present not as a finite enjoyer, nor as one taking part in bodily activities, but as a witness, overseer, permitter, and supreme enjoyer. His name is Paramatma, not Atma, and He is transcendental. It is distinctly clear that Atma and Paramatma are different. The supersoul Paramatma has legs and hands everywhere, but the individual soul does not. But because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, He is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. The individual bhukta or sustained is, and the Lord is bhukta or the maintainer. There are innumerable living entities and He is staying within them as a friend. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes a really amazing statement, and it just came to me in the Vishnu Sahasranam, I forget which name, where he says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to witness a living entity, how you like one of your favorite pastimes is to look at the cameras, going on. It's the first thing you do when you wake up. And the camera has you can look at the hall from this way, you can look at the hall from that way. There's so many different views, So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, yes, He's present inside as a super soul. But then if He wants to look at the living entity from another perspective, from another view, of course He has so many things, but one thing He can do is He can look at another living entity using the senses of a living entity separate from the one that He wants to look at. Let's just say I want to look at, let's just say the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Super Soul, wants to look at Jacob. He can look at Jacob, from the inside, he's seeing. But then he can also look at Jacob through Janardhan's eyes, Chandan's eyes, my eyes, or Mataji's eyes. All the eyes that are present over here, he can look at him like that. Look at him from all different points of view. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, being the witness and the sanction and the master of the senses, he can hack the senses if he wants to. It's so amazing. It's really amazing, actually. It just freaking blows my mind, actually. It really does. And, there's another thing, in the Bhagavatam, you can look this up. You look up Jnana and Jana. Okay, Jnana and Jana. Just look that up. And it's a purport in the 11th canto, and they're quoting Madhvacharya. I remember reading this many years ago, but it's just I'm just getting remembrance of this now. So, please, you can look at that over there. And if you find it, let me know. So we can see this over here, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is very amazing, actually. Everything that he does is amazing. And, why do we discuss this? Because for two reasons. One, of course, is to understand Krishna in truth. And another is to, within us, to evoke the Adbhuta Rasa. What does Adbhuta Rasa mean? What does Adbhuta Rasa mean? Right. The rasa of understanding how wonderful is Krishna. Oh my God, And this is just like the things that he does in the material world, actually. For Krishna, it's not so impressive. Actually, like, what's the big deal? Okay. It's like, if you have like a great architect and he constructed like let's just say like Vishwakarma, constructs so many things, or Mayadanava constructed Indraprastha for the Pandavas, and there's like so many beautiful things in Indraprastha, and it's so amazing. It's like the greatest assembly hall in the whole universe when it existed. So if you say, all right, let's go on a tour to see Indraprastha, would you say, yeah, I can't wait to see the bathrooms in Indraprastha? Would you say that? No. I'm sure that would be impressive, but that's not going to be the most impressive thing in Indraprastha. There are going to be so many more impressive things than we can imagine. So many more impressive things. So we can understand from this that the material world is just like that. It's like an inferior creation of Krishna. Ekam Shena, just 1/4 of the entire creation. But Krishna's real glory actually lies in the spiritual world. We are very impressed. Wow, this is amazing, man. This is amazing. Let's just say you meet a billionaire and the guy just gives you like $1,000 and you're like, do you find it?
Any more information other than that?
Why there's so many things. It says Jnana and Jana.
I'm searching that and it's not coming up in the 11th canto.
Okay, anyway, I'll find it. I guess I'll find it myself. Huh? Madhvacharya, just say Madhvacharya and Jnananjana. I'm sure if you do that, you'll find it. But you should spell Madhvacharya right. That's the trick. So, we see this over here. Krishna inspires Adbhuta Rasa. This material world is actually not so impressive. Not so impressive. Krishna's real glory is in the spiritual world. And Krishna's glory also lies in one more thing, his Bhakta Vatsalatva. That in his ability to take care of his devotees. That is very amazing, actually. That is very amazing. That Krishna, he's one of the names of Krishna, Manojava, which means he's faster than the mind. He's very fast, Manojava. So the minute Gajendra prayed to him, he immediately appeared there on this scene, and he didn't even have time to wear his shoes or anything. And all his weapons and everything, they started going behind him. And he mounts on Garuda, and Garuda was not going fast enough, so he carries Garuda to get there fast enough. He immediately appears there. Immediately. And then, of course, the Shankaracharya being a Mayavadi, he says, oh, what's the big deal? He's present everywhere as a Paramatma, so he manifested out of there. But, the Vaishnavas, they say, he's all the way in Vaikuntha, and he came. Just for Gajendra. Just for Gajendra, who's offering his prayers. It's very amazing. Krishna is so amazing, that he is doing all these things. Jiva Goswami explains that what is the purpose of this material world? What's the purpose of this material world? Right? That's it, the attitude correctional facility for the living entity, sure. But there's another thing. What's the whole purpose? Okay, what does that mean? That's a byproduct. What's the main function of the material world? Precisely. And the way Jiva Goswami, he explains it is that For the sadhaka to attain his sadhya through his sadhana. May seem like big words, but it's for the devotee to perform devotional service and attain his desired goal, which is the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the whole purpose of this material world. The whole purpose of this material world. And everything that you see over here in the material world, anything other than devotees performing devotional service, is simply a byproduct. Let's just say, you're a Boy Scout and you're going to cook, and you're cooking out there in the forest or wherever. And then, you use a stick. Did you find it? If you're not finding it, don't worry about it. I'll pull it up sometime. Anyway, if it's not there, I can just quote it from my memory. But it's probably in the 11th canto.
What's the kind of thing that you want?
Let me see what you got. Okay. So, we can understand over here. So basically, I'll tell you the exact context of this verse I'm remembering now. It's like about all the different potencies of the Supreme Lord and how all his energy is spread. If you can, especially he's talking about the knowledge potency of the Supreme Lord. Anyway, if you're not able to find it in the next minute, don't worry about it. I'll just quote it and I'll pull up the reference later today. So, we understand over here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he creates this material world, and everything that we see in this material world, which is not devotional service, is simply like it's like a byproduct of it. So, like I was giving the example, if you're a Boy Scout and you're cooking in the wild, you're cooking, and you want to make something, you use firewood, right, and you cook everything. And the ultimate goal of doing everything is to make your sabji or make whatever you want to make. And the byproduct of that is that the firewood turns into ashes. Right? So similarly, everything which is going on in this material world is simply a byproduct of that. Like it's everything, it's like the firewood turning to ashes. And one important point to understand is that in order for us to attain devotional service, one of the most amazing things Krishna does. Okay, in order for a living entity to take to devotional service, what is absolutely needed? Precisely. Yeah. What do you say? Association. What did you say? Spiritual mass. Same. So that means that by Krishna's mercy, at all times, there has to be pure devotees present on the planet who will give pure devotional service for the living entity who wants to perfect his devotional service. At all times. Sometimes it's covered and sometimes it's not. And the amazing thing with Krishna is that he always makes sure that the living entity is facilitated to perform devotional service. You found it? Fantastic. Okay. Awesome. Okay, looking. Let's see. Yeah. I'm seeing that. Okay, I'll read through this first. It's probably here, but we understand this over here that's the amazing thing about Krishna, that he is simultaneously he is samoham sarva bhuteshu. You want to see another amazing thing? Pull this up. I think it's 926, right? Samoham sarva bhuteshu. Samoham sarva bhuteshu name dveshu sina priyaha ye bhajanti tamam bhaktya maite teshu chapya. I envy no one, nor am I. No, that's not it. Jacob, at least read this. Attempt to read the Sanskrit. You just go back. Back. Why are you going front? Yeah, back. That's not it. You know what? It's probably all the way in the end of the chapter. No. Go to like verse number 29. 929. Yeah, boom, that's it. So now they look at this. This is Krishna. He simultaneously, Krishna says, go to the translation, please. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone, but I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion as a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Isn't that inconceivable that he envies no one, nor is he a friend to anyone? But for this devotee, he makes all these exceptions. And, it may be hard for us. The offering is going to happen up here. Okay. Running by schedule, I guess, huh? Okay. Anyway, if it doesn't come in the next, you can text them or whatever. We can see over here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has all his potencies and has all these amazing things. But, why does he exist? Why does he exist? What's the purpose of the existence of the Supreme Lord? Exit. That's exactly. Ruchi Rangada, he is present only for the pleasure of his devotees. There's no other reason for Krishna's existence. He exists only for the pleasure of his devotees. All his potencies and his great qualities and this and the other thing, they're simply there for the pleasure of the devotees. That's all. There's no other reason why Krishna's existence is so completely dependent upon him. If we read in the first canto, the first chapter, the first verse of the Bhagavatam, we hear that Chartesh Abhigyas Swarat. Krishna says, I am completely independent of everything. Chartesh Abhigyas Swarat. But then in the ninth canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna says, was that Sadhavo Hridayam Mahyam, Sadhunam Hridayam Twaham. Actually, my dear Durvasa, I'm not independent. Krishna says first he's independent and then he says he's not independent. How is this possible? That Krishna is simultaneously independent and dependent at the same time. Yes, why? Because I'm dependent upon the love of my devotees. My devotees are the ones who completely control me. My devotees control me. So we can understand this, that, Krishna, he is very, he's very tricky sometimes. The way he functions, the way he is very tricky. We may not understand, but that is the nature of love. Rupa Goswami gives the example. The nature of love, the movements of love, how the movements of love are? Like the movements of a snake. The movements of love are like the movements of a snake. There's not like one straight logical line, okay, like that. It's not like that. But if you see how a snake moves, and I even looked at like a YouTube video of seeing how a snake moved, because I've seen snake only a few times actually. And every time I see it, I freak out a little bit. If it's poisonous or not used to snakes. So snake moves, and the way he moves is like crazy actually. I can't even fathom or figure out how a snake moves, And like somehow his body like has the friction to to make his way on the sand or wherever the heck, And he figures out the same way as a movement of love is like that. It's like the movement of a snake. You can't really understand how it is, but somehow the other, it's Krishna figures it out. Krishna always comes through. Krishna always comes through. And the way he comes through may be different different times. We cannot understand this. But anyway, now we're going to be entering into another section of the purport. But, I wanted to go over it later today. So I'll speak one really amazing thing. That, tattva is absolutely necessary to understand rasa. That the amazing philosophical understanding, all the philosophical understanding that is needed in order to understand Krishna fully, in order to understand Krishna completely. That is why it's Bhakti Siddhanta. There is no Siddhanta without Bhakti, and there is no Bhakti without Siddhanta. These two things are simultaneously existing. That we need both these things. There's no Bhakti without Vedanta, and there's no Vedanta without Bhakti. Both these things are needed. And the Acharyas are not different from their names. So there's protection. Protection means what? Protection of the Bhakti Lata. What else is needed for protection? That's why, we see Krishna says, what is that? Konteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashiti. Declare it boldly, O Arjuna, my devotee is never vanquished. But Bhishma was vanquished by Arjuna. Bhishma was vanquished, right? Yes or no? Everyone read the first canto of the Bhagavatam, right? No, wrong. Right, so Krishna protected his Bhakti Lata. We see that, like the way Bhishma is killed is that, there's this person called Shikandi who takes birth in order to kill, whose only purpose in life was to kill Bhishma, born enemy of Bhishma. So, that's his purpose. So Arjuna keeps Shikandi in front of him. And when Bhishma sees Shikandi, he doesn't want to shoot Shikandi because he was a woman in his past, and the big thing in the Mahabharata or whatever. But Arjuna's arrows, they burn. Bhishma tells him, you see, the touch of Arjuna's arrows are like the touch of a Brahmin's rod. They're like death itself. And Arjuna pierces every part of Bhishma's body. He pierces every part of Bhishma's body, so much so that you couldn't even keep a finger. You couldn't even keep a finger between the arrows. So he shoots Bhishma and Bhishma lays down on the battlefield on a bed of arrows. Bhishma is laying down. So one may say, where's the protection? But there's no protection if it's not the protection of the Bhakti Lata. So we understand like this, the acharyas are not different from their names. We understand this point. And, if we want to attain love of God, what ointment do we need? Premanjana, Churita, Bhakti, Vilochanena, Santa Sadeva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti, Yam Shama Sundaram, Achintya Guna Swarupam, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That if a person wants to, see Krishna, his eyes need to be anointed with the salve of love. Salve of love. Your eyes need to be anointed with the salve of love, and only then will you be able to see Krishna. Otherwise, you'll not be able to see Krishna. And what does it mean to see Krishna? And I'm going to get into that whole thing in the next part of this seminar. But we understand that in order for us to see, Premanjana is needed. But then there's also another Anjana, another ointment, which is also described. What ointment is that? Precisely, yes, very good. The Jnananjana, the ointment, the ointment of transcendental knowledge is also needed for the living entity in order to get the Premanjana. These two things go simultaneously, and that's why I wanted you to pull it up. It's definitely there somewhere in the Bhagavatam. And Madhvacharya makes this point that one of the potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is Jnananjana. One of the potencies. And Krishna wants to give us that. Krishna wants to give us transcendental knowledge. And he gives us transcendental knowledge via the medium of the spiritual master. Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. Prema Bhakti Yaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito. That we understand. Avidya Vinasha Vedega Yahara Charita. Sorry. Vedega Yahara Charita. So, we see that, Prema Bhakti Yaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jate. That these two things happen simultaneously. These two things happen simultaneously. It's like when you're eating food, your body is nourished and you feel satisfaction. So similarly, when we take upon the process of devotional service and we hear transcendental knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master, then at that point of time, we actually are anointed with the salve of love of God. We're anointed with the salve of knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very important. Very, very important. Without having these two, how will we go back home, back to God? These two things are needed. And then, along with the instruction to the spiritual master comes the strength to fulfill those instructions also. So, we need to focus and we need to understand that just like yesterday, what were we saying? The instruction of the spiritual master, we were comparing it to something. Anyone remember? That's how we ended the class yesterday. No one? What do you say? Wow, that's a good speculation. No. And then? Can we get a hint? I was comparing it to, I read something from the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, and I compared the instruction to the Spirit. Prabhupada speaks about the word Vidyat, and Vidyat means to see the light of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right. So, what was the instruction to the spiritual master compared to? No, instructions. What were they compared to? Vani o Vapu. We saw this yesterday. So anyway, there's a quote in this 34th chapter of this 34th verse of this chapter, where it says that in order to see Krishna, you need the light of Krishna coming from this, and that light of Krishna, the instructions coming from the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And for Brahma, that instruction was, how did he get that instruction? Flute of Krishna. So therefore, the instructions of the spiritual master are what can be compared to the flute of Krishna. By fully engaging oneself absorbing oneself and engaging in the instruction of the spiritual master, it's like hearing Krishna's flute. It's non-different. The instruction of the spiritual master is non-different. So we have to do like this, and by doing so, we'll come into this fold. We'll come into the fold of the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is needed. And anyway, I'll end the class over here. If there's any questions or comments, we can take them now. What's going on down there? Okay. Your help is needed? Go with someone. Okay. Anyone has a mic, what you said? What happened to the mic? Jonathan, you like kept this and that, right? This one? Were there two things in it? Like, whoa, this is crazy. Can't be that spaced out. You found it? You're talking about this, right? It's on the TV. That's amazing. That's why we like to keep things in the place where they belong. Therefore, they don't get lost.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Jita, you look like you have a question.
The verse 9, Bhagavad Gita 9:4,
Mhm.
Krishna says, all living beings are in me, but I am not in them. That always sort of baffled me.
Yeah,
He says,
me too.
I'm not in them because he's situated as Paramatma.
Yeah.
So what exactly does he mean?
It's like
When he
this,
says,
you know,
"I'm not in
that the businessman is simultaneously in every department of the business and he's simultaneously not. This is a crude example. You know, but Krishna is present everywhere, but personally he's dancing in Vrindavan. Personally, that's what Krishna is personally doing. Right? It's unreasonable to expect that the owner of the business is going to be in every department at all times. But he's also there. You know? So same way. Okay? Anything else? Anything online? What's going on? Okay, it's not okay. Okay. All right. Anyone had any of them? Yes, Avadut.
Prabhu, it's not necessarily on this class, but it's about Mayavad. Is that all right?
Okay.
I was just
It's on the seminar.
yeah.
Okay.
That's the main
I got
subject
you.
matter.
Yeah.
I was going to ask this last night, but you were getting more into it yesterday, the topic. But I was curious of how, as practicing devotees, how are we supposed to avoid like the influence of Mayavad in the life of a practicing sadhaka?
The life of what? Sorry.
Someone practicing Krishna consciousness.
How are we to avoid? I mean, one thing is by keeping good association. So there's like this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bodhna maniya, Vedna maniya bodha hoilo nasik, Vedashaya nasikavad bodha keyadik. That the Buddhists, they are dangerous, but it's easy for us to distinguish, okay, they're Buddhists, why do we care? But more dangerous than the Buddhists are those who, the Mayavadis, who claim to be followers of the Vedas but simply preach Buddhism. So similarly, we can take this to understand even deeper that people can claim to be, followers of the Bhagavatam and can claim to be devotees, but in the end, they could also have a conception which is very against the principles laid down in the Bhagavatam. And then taking that even further, it may seem sometimes that there's people who claim to be followers of Prabhupada and do all this and do all that. But at the same time, they do not really follow what Srila Prabhupada says. You could go into a temple and they may say, Jai Prabhupada, and this, that, and the other thing. But at the same time, they could want to shut down the BBT. So when such a thing happens, we should know that this is Asat Sangha. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Asat Sangha Tyag E Vaishnavachar, Sri Sangi Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta Ar. That, the very symptom of a devotee is Asat Sangha Tyag. He gives up bad association. Asat Sangha Tyag E Vaishnavachar, Sri Sangi Eka Sadhu Krishna Bhakta Ar. That, one of the association he gives up is of men who are too attached to women. So if we can see this, we can protect ourselves from seeing that how much is a person self-controlled. How much is a person self-controlled? How much do they keep themselves aloof from the association of women? How much do they keep themselves aloof from feministic ideas and all things like that? How much are they aloof from that? How much? Why? Because ultimately, You can also see feminism also is simply like it's like a portrayal. It's an effect of Mayavad. Why? Because they want to merge the men and the women's roles together, trying to make something which is not. And then when that happens, it just creates havoc. Initially it may seem good. It's like happiness in the mode of passion. Then it turns out to be like really bad in the end. Broken families, more unwanted population, unhappy people. And it just gets destroyed completely. So we understand like that. We keep ourselves away from bad association, from entering into our own lives. If we're reading Prabhupada's books, very diligently, if we're doing all these things, that'll protect ourselves. And ultimately, we need good luck. Good fortune is needed. We cannot expect to do everything mechanically. Ultimately, the blessing of Krishna, good fortune is needed. So we protect ourselves like that.
Just one other thing, like on the topic of feminism. When I was driving yesterday with Ranchor Prabhu and Ramamataji, we were going downtown, and it's so awful. There's this massive billboard of this like.
Yeah, half-naked Mataji.
It's so terrible.
Yes, so kids see that
Ranchor
stuff, man.
Prabhu was saying, "Oh, it's because there's bad leaders,"
Yeah.
And I was just, we keep driving. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so disturbing." And then you make another corner somewhere downtown again, it's the same exact thing. It's like, wow, why is society promoting this?
Yeah.
It's so terrible.
Kids see that stuff,
Yeah.
It's so crazy. They don't care. See, like the most important thing for a society to protect is the innocence of the children. That's the most important thing, actually, for them to protect. And I even remember, like, in my own life, like I was, pretty innocent. And then one day, I remember I was in like 3rd grade or whatever. And for the first time, I had heard a cuss word in my life.
Oh, wow.
I remember that, precisely, that who told it to me, the word that he said. And that just completely contaminated my consciousness.
Was it your classmate?
It was like my friend's older brother.
Oh.
Like you were saying you found something and you share. So, like it's like the destruction of innocence. So when, and all this comes about, why? Because ultimately is the effect of Mayavad on the society, where they think that ultimately, it's like, anyway they're going to find out about it. So why don't they find out about it earlier? But no, you find out about things like this when you've hit puberty, when you're sane enough to make these decisions, right? For example, okay, like a 13-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl can easily have sex. Okay, fantastic, you can have sex. But are you responsible enough to take care of the kid? Do you have what it takes to take care of the kid? No. I remember I was just reading books in New York subway one time, and I saw like there was this young guy. He was like probably 16. And he was with this girl, and she was like, she's 15, and she's pregnant. I said, oh my God, like, bro, like, you're pregnant, what do you do? Like, no, I don't have a job, I don't have any. What the heck? What? But imagine, like, the degree of, and Mayavad, the very nature of Mayavad is that it increases the propensity to enjoy, actually, in the name of, like, decreasing it. Like, when Mayavad philosophy gets even more degraded, people are encouraged to enjoy grossly. And then when it's in the subtle platform, people want to enjoy thinking they're God. But ultimately, both are insane. Both are crazy. But the destruction of the innocence of children, that is the most insidious thing that society can actually do. So we understand that. And I guess, it's not at all a stretch to say it's the influence of Mayavad. It's not at all a stretch. Shunyavad. Why? Because, it all stems from this, that ultimately there's no consequence of what happens. What's the big deal? You look at this 16:8 Bhagavad Gita. 16:8? I think it's 16, yeah. Asatyam apratishante jagadahuranishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kim anyat kama haitukam. So there, they say that the world is unreal, with no foundation, no God in control. They say it's produced of sex desire and has no cause other than lust. Where do you think that philosophy came from? Where do you think it came from? Like, do you think it came from, let's distinguish everything. Ultimately, if everything is going to go to hell, and if we're all, where does the conception of matter of life comes from matter? Where does that conception come from?
No God.
Where does all this come from? Yeah. It's a no-brainer. So we understand like that. We see it like that. So we should be very careful to protect ourselves from this. One thing is by constantly hearing classes like this, I was talking to Chandan, I was telling him, Prabhu, after I gave the class yesterday, I was so mentally exhausted, because I was doing some exhaustive research into analyzing Mayavad and doing all this thing. Chandan also was we're reading all this, we were reading for 4 hours in a row, and then after that we have this class with heavy philosophy, It's so heavy, oh my God. I myself was dude, I need to pass out after giving this class. I was so mentally exhausted from, I was just doing research and analyzing every different thing in so many different ways, and and even when I'm sleeping, I'm thinking about this, because when your mind is absorbed in it, you think about these things, and then, but if we have to do this, this is the austerity, that we have to perform in understanding Siddhanta. We have to understand these points. And by doing so, that's why, Chaitanya, what's the verse number? Siddhanta bolye chite na karo alas, ya haite Krishna lagi sudrida manas. What's the verse number for this? Siddhanta bolye chite na karo alas. So that's why, we should not be shy in understanding Siddhanta. We should not be shy. Why? And we should not be shy in discussing these subject matters, considering them to be controversial. Why? Because if we discuss these subject matters, then our attachment to Krishna will increase. That is why. That's the reason why we do it. Anyway, don't worry about it. I quoted the verse. Don't worry about it. So...
Adi 2.117.
Okay. You can look at it. I just quoted it. CC. Yeah, Adi.
Chapter 2.117.
It's amazing. Chaitanya has so many verses in every chapter. Yeah. A sincere student should not neglect the discussions of such conclusions, considering them controversial. For such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So it's about strengthening the mind, understanding these things in painstaking detail. Prabhupada went through so much pain to present to us what's in his books. Yes, it's really austere, actually. Imagine everything that Prabhupada laid out for us. But when we read this, we should get really ecstatic, actually. You should understand like that. So is that okay? Avadut?
Wonderful.
Okay. Chandan, you had something? Oh. If you want some more time to remember, Jita Girish has. Oh, you found it, remember?
So, one nice thing is you're speaking about all of these things, and I'm reading this Harinam Chintamani, and it's really awesome.
Yeah, it's nectar.
And so the Guru first instructs his disciple in Sambandha Gyan. This is to be exactly explained, and the disciple must receive it with proper faith. The quintessential,
quintessential, right? That's what you say.
Yeah, quintessence.
A quintessence, huh?
I don't know. Of this knowledge is that Lord Krishna is eternally the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Jiva is his eternal servitor, and the Jiva's loving relationship with Krishna is likewise eternal and inherent trait of his nature.
Bhakti, Bhakta, and Bhagavan. Yeah.
In contact with material nature, the Jiva forgets his eternal relationship with the Lord and loiters aimlessly in this world of illusion, searching for bliss. The material world is a veritable prison house where the Jiva is penalized for turning his back on Krishna. It consists of 14 planetary systems, which together are known as Devi Dham. These planetary systems are the cells within the prison where the recalcitrant jivas are confined.
The what?
Yeah. So recalcitrant, huh? Yeah, that's what he said. Whatever he said.
What?
So, recalcitrant.
What the heck is that?
Hold up, let me look it up.
I guess it's whatever.
Okay, so
rebellious
it means it says recalcitrant seeds are seeds that do not survive drying and freezing.
Obstinately uncooperative attitude.
Yeah, rebellious.
Okay, rebellious jivas are confined. Devi Dham is not a place for experiencing happiness and bliss. The so-called material pleasure offered to the jivas here are only temporary and hence simply further suffering. But since punishments and remedies, the jivas are reformed through such punitive measures. He was saying that one must understand these points in order to come to the...
Man, we literally spoke about this.
Yeah,
That's
it's
amazing.
There's more things that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. When one starts to experience this, when one understands this, the holy name of the Lord shines brighter than ever.
Yeah.
And it enters into one's life and the devotee starts to experience ecstasy. The holy name starts to dance on the tongue of the
Tongue of the
devotee.
devotee.
And with the whole dancing of the holy name, the devotee starts to dance with it.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's, yeah.
That's really nectar.
And then when he's dancing like that, he starts to experience that within his heart at every moment.
Yeah. And you know what's amazing? There's this book of Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Bhajana Rahasya. What does this mean? The secret of bhajan, right? And in this, he's explaining the Catuh Sloki of the Bhagavatam. And so, we can understand if we want to even like strengthen our bhajan and all this, we have to understand this. Anything else? Yes, Jita, you had something. Jit.
So, anyways, you sort of like sparked a train of thought when you were talking about like children and how the innocence of children is being spoiled by these like irresponsible leaders
Yeah.
who lack discrimination. And I thought it was interesting you linked that to Mayavad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about like how as the modern age progresses, people are becoming desensitized to what is degraded because they have this Mayavad conception of everybody has the right to enjoy. Everybody's awesome.
No,
Everybody,
ultimately, you see the bottom line, everyone is God, so they can enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but the thing is, like, people have these abominable professions, whatever illicit sex professions, and people have all sorts of guilty, like, wacko pleasures that they like to indulge in, and then so everybody has the right to enjoy because everyone's God, and so the population is just becoming super desensitized to that because people are they're so-called sensitive because they don't want to hurt people's feelings. You can enjoy in that way and I can enjoy in this way, and I don't want to
Infringe
shame
upon your
you
enjoyment.
about your enjoyment, because ultimately it's all just enjoyment. It's all
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, smoking or not
yeah,
smoking. One guy enjoys smoking, other guy doesn't smoking. What's the big deal?
Yeah. So yeah.
And when this happens, naturally, like, I don't want to infringe on your enjoyment and you don't. But enjoyment is limited. There's limited supply and there's so much demand. So therefore, there will be war. There will be war. You can think about it like Israel and Hamas. What's the big deal? They're enjoying one way, the other person enjoying the other way. But no, like, when the goal of life is to enjoy, you're going to infringe on someone this way or that way.
Yeah. So yeah, this guilt of just being degraded, that comes with being degraded, is completely being removed. The guilt that
definitely.
comes
No, you
with
don't
that.
need to feel guilty.
And then now
the thing is, if
degradation
you
is
feel
complete
guilty, there's
standard.
something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you feel guilty, there's something wrong with you, actually. That's the insanity, actually.
Yeah, you get because your mind gets disturbed, and then
And you're being
They say you have a
judgmental,
mental disorder.
Yeah,
'cause your
you're
mind-
being
yeah.
judgmental here and all this and all that. Like, bro, what the heck are you talking about? Anyway. Okay.
Prabhu, I have a question. Is there a difference between people who enjoy with the attitude that they only have one life, people who don't believe in reincarnation, versus Mayavadis who believe in reincarnation but they still enjoy?
Yeah, the difference is the one you stated. What you just stated is the difference.
Okay.
It's like, that's the point. They're two different people. That's why there's known as karmis and gyanis. Or I guess in the case of these people, be karmis. Yeah.
More in this like aspect of Samandha Tattva Jnana Videya Prayojan. Maybe you can help me understand this a little bit more also. One thing Bhaktivinoda Thakur was quoting, I think he was quoting Haridas Thakur, that the only thing real in this material world is the jiva and the holy name. And so one thing that's being discussed is like Samandha Tattva Jnana is the Guru convincing you that, giving you the understanding of the holy name, and then Avideya is like to engage in chanting the holy name.
Yeah.
And then Prayojan is to actually become attached to it. Is that, do you
Yeah, that's the point. Like, that you're convinced why to chant, and then you start. So it's like you have the knowledge and you understand why you should do it, and then when you start doing it, that's engaging in devotional service, and then prayojan is attaining the goal of chanting. So it's simple like that. Anything else? Yes. Yeah, you, Janardhan Krishna Prabhu. Yes.
So we were speaking yesterday about how, Krishna has these limited and these unlimited energies, and
Is the mic on? Okay.
and the jiva is like a manifestation of these, or is a part of this limited energy. So is the correct understanding that at one point the jivas were created by Krishna even though they're eternal? Or is it that, like that example that we were talking about, that when the sun shines naturally, simultaneously there's the sunlight and the sun rays and the heat that also comes with it, but technically like the sun is there just like maybe like a split second before and then the energy comes, or like what's like the...
So, see, one thing you have to understand is like, you either completely, you either accept the conception of eternality or you don't.
Yeah.
You see? So there's no point, like if you understand that you're eternal, by understanding that means there's no point that you were born, there's no point that you're going to die.
Yeah.
So it's like the living entities always existed. How did Krishna create them or this or that? No, but they always existed. Just like there's no meaning to the sun without sunshine. So it doesn't mean like technically, 1 second. It doesn't matter. When the sun is there, the sunshine is there. So either we completely accept the concept of eternality or we don't. So there's like no point where it actually happened. You understand?
Yeah. I mean, I've like always like struggled with this even since like I was like a kid, like trying to like understand that, like, because I guess from being in the material world for so long, it's like a conditioning that something must have like some origin,
Beginning, yeah.
sometime, somewhere.
That's our conditioning. Like, can we like figure out when, when was the sun created? If I told you the sun was created 7 billion years ago, like, do you have any conception of it? Obviously not, But the living entity things like, because it's so, everything around us, has a beginning, middle, and end. We think that, even, so time, when did time start? What time did time start? Can you understand? I mean, for some people, that's when they wake up. But that's why Baldev Vidyabhushan helps us understand this in a similar way, that there's always time at all times. There's always time. Time eternally exists. So we understand it from that perspective.
So the right example is like that example of like the sun and the sun rays and the heat.
And they're all exist simultaneously.
Okay.
Anything else from the Matajis? Yes.
I was gonna ask this yesterday, but so like I'm sure you probably came across people who say like, women are God because they can create life, But I don't really know how to. I mean, obviously that's not
They can't create life. They need a seed to create life.
right. I was just
Why do you always come across these people? Like, I don't know. Like, you always come across these people. I guess I don't know. So yeah, they can't create life by themselves. They need a seed. They need a seed-giving father to create life. Anything else?
Life is created by the Father. Just
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's just freaking ridiculous. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
You gotta like watch the people you associate with. Why do you always? Who do you talk to so much crazy? Anyway, yeah.
Hare Krishna. Okay.
Yes.
So you were saying that Krishna exists for the devotees?
For the pleasure of the
For the
devotees.
pleasure
Yes.
of the devotees.
Yes.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Anything else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
It's been a while since I've
Yeah, good to
come
see
back,
you.
Krishna life.
Your Bhagavatam is waiting for you, by the way. Yes.
So, when it says like a sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, even considering them controversial, but it also like when they come to like those certain conclusions, like it kind of like strengthens the mind. Like, how deep does that like understanding have to be? Like, how many times do you have to learn that lesson to
Like
come to
8
that?
miles deep. No, just kidding. No. It's like you have to be convinced of it. You have to be convinced of it. That you see, when you're approaching the absolute truth, it means that you have to have absolute. If you want to be pure, you have to have absolute faith and you have to have absolute surrender. And there's never a point of time where like you think, okay, anyway, I have enough faith now. No, like in the faith, like your realization of Krishna increases and increases and increases, and it just ripens over time. It just gets better and better over time. It's like the perverted reflection of this example is that wine just gets better over time. Right? Pickles also. And not instant pickles, but like the pickles which last. They get better over time. So similarly, we understand like this, even devotional service, like the realization, it becomes more and more mature. Is that okay? Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay. One more. So at the beginning of the purport, it was saying that how, like we're made of the different elements like fire, water, earth, ether, and then
The body
air.
is not us.
The body,
Mhm.
right? So I'm kind of confused a little bit about how also the demigods are created with that too. I'm hoping I'm not reading.
Which
that
canto
wrong.
of the Bhagavatam are you on?
I'm on the second.
Okay, so when you get to the third, you'll understand this, But anyway, there's Prajapati Daksha, from him, basically, like, there's all these, like, these blueprints available, and then, there's different posts that demigods fill up according to their karma. Just like, there's posts for mayors and the posts for governments and for governor and, like, whatever. These posts are available, and depending upon the karma of a person, he's put into that post. So same thing with the demigods, too. They're also there like that. And Prajapati Daksha creates, like different kinds of body. He's probably the lustiest person ever. Because his service is to do that. Huh? Of course, it's all the same elements that he's dealing with, but there's like different bodies have different degrees of that. For example, like our bodies don't have as much water element as the fish bodies do. Lord Brahma's body is completely made of intelligence. So we understand like that. Okay? They all have subtle bodies, yeah. Yeah. All right, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.